Good afternoon to the family of Sahitya Akademi, professors from this college, dignitaries on the dais, present media. In my tribal language, there is a word called Zuar. You know what Zuar means? Zuar means good afternoon or good day. So let me teach you one word today, because I see you often sleeping now. So Zuar, say it loudly. Zuar. Okay, so good. I have titled my paper as Tears That Tell Tales, Reflections and Impressions of a Tribal Author and Poet in the Age of Globalization. I have thought of presenting my own book, Don't Push Me, The Sky Roofs My Valley Too. I'm a tribal author by myself. This book is prescribed as a suggested reading to the students of creative writing in Iowa University, US. So my learned colleagues here, they have given a big lecture about globalization. And you know, globalization is a word which says that, according to Ted Levitt, he says, two vectors shape the world. One is technology, another one is globalization. Globalization has a deeper impact on tribal cultures and languages more than what meets the eye. Though some may argue that globalization brings in economic liberalization and expanded market, it wields an insidious influence on the cultures and linguistic practices of the tribals. So, the phenomena of globalization not only encroaches upon the geographical boundaries of the tribals, but also on their modes of living and being called. I would like to quote Priyanka Neil. She says, land is a very important component for the tribal development. It occupies their source of livelihood. But the globalization trend has alienated tribals from their mainstay, unquote. So here, this resulted in the alienation of the tribals for various purposes like, construction of dams, mining projects, setting up wildlife sanctuaries, construction of government infrastructure, and all these sort of things. While the Adivasis have been displaced and pushed to the fringes of globalization, the natural resources were victims of large-scale destruction directly because industries have brought in. As a result, they have been more occupied by the non-tribals. As a result, tribals ended up in a debris of globalized policies, unable to access the resources which were their life-sustaining forces, or to compete with the mainstream society to be absorbed into an alternate economy. I would like to quote, disposed of their land and forest, the tribals live a life of debilitation and displacement. And I would like to quote it from my own book, Don't Push Me, The Sky Roofs My Valley Too, from the poem titled Enveloped in the Wind. I say, I gazed at the metallic sky above, full of clouds, hardly sun is at sight. Mourning the bare tree stands, wishing for a ray of sun and little warmth. It can be observed that displacement is the main problem confronting the tribals. This, on one hand, is depriving them of their cultural identity. I would like to quote Ganga Sahai Meena, who says that if they try to preserve their identity, their existence is threatened, and if they try to secure their existence, their identity is lost. That is why, totally, tribal discourse is a discourse of existence and identity that made me to feel and to think about writing on the poetic genre. In the movement from tradition to modernity, the tribal confront the sheer impact of migration, displacement, and alienation. The tribals suffer in silence from cultural invasion and other alien modern inventions which turned them quite deplorably into slaves of their own land. While already at a disadvantaged position, being marginalized and grossly neglected sections of the society, the tribal writers experience the unsettling and awkward predicament of adapting cultures. Most of them are caught up in the time warp, living in the world of memories and painful estrangement. I quote from my poem, You Are a Special Friend. I say, I move above the trees and swim across the seas to the land of magical mystery. I hope all logic and sense has deserted me. Tribal people have their own distinct language, cultures, and social, political institutions that are different from the mainstream society. Though tribal literature has been oral form for a long time, their culture is still alive. Tribals have not been given adequate policies in the history of established literary canon due to cruel estrangement of mainstream society and the social discriminations they have been facing from the world outside. I would like to quote, deep inside that there is a feeling for each and everybody who is associated with the tribal groups that life isn't easy. Life isn't easy for a tribal woman to survive, and I stand as a representative of my world of women. Then, I would like to quote my poem, The Solace, where I have said that, lost I wander, alone down seldom trodden trails, seeking, ever searching for an escape of all my fails, never finding solace from hell, I made my life. Because mostly the women in the tribal areas, they are being lured by the mainstream non-tribals where they come to make their forest produce. And in the process of taking the forest produce, they lure these women, and these women, they get into a kind of strange relationship with them. Though married, they make use of these women, and in the course of time, the women try to realize that their men are not their men. Their men were not their men at all. And then women for years happening to be the source of commodity to be sold out in an emotional market. And here he says, women herself, her suffering, her cry in the wilderness for securing an identity of her own, her emotional crisis, whatever the nomenclature could be, women is a hapless victim. I say, if Indian writing in English is a genre where people think about writing all kinds of literatures, regional and Indianized English, I say women is twice oppressed for the modern society, but thrice oppressed for the tribal society. Woman is, firstly, she's oppressed by her own man. Second, she's oppressed by the elders of her family. And third time, she's oppressed. A tribal woman is also oppressed by not only by the community of herself, but also by the women of higher communities. So oppression comes in any form, and woman is the sole sufferer. And she doesn't even realize that she is being treated to be an embodiment of suffering. Most of the time, she doesn't even realize that she is in the gateway of being suffered or tortured by the fellow human being. She doesn't realize that. Another important reason is tribal women are not educated to be, at least to go to schools. And believe me, I am the first tribal woman professor from my entire community, and maybe from entire South Indian universities from English department. When Mr. Manki Boone met me, we met in University of Princeton. He just said, because that time I was introduced to him by our late President of India, Mr. Abdul Kalam. Abdul Kalam said, how many thorns at your feet, Professor, he said. Because, venturing into tribal area is not an easy way. And, tribals, they don't have the habit of inviting people like modern world. And once you become so familiar with them, tribals are the best people where they can keep you not in the, they keep you in their heart. And so here, there is another collection called Look Back at the Longing Hills. From this particular anthology, I have written this. There is a solitude of suffering when you go through the darkness that is lonely, intense, and terrible. Words become powerless to express your pain. What others hear from you, what others hear from your words is so distant and different from what you actually suffer. Then, women herself, her suffering is a cry in wilderness, which I just read, and then very few men understand the value of appreciating the other, or they appreciating the half of the world's population, that is women. But mostly, it is in this cruel and inhuman subjugation of women living on the borders of the society in appalling conditions, even with their basic needs unfulfilled, unaccounted for, has motivated me to pen down these poems. Personal interactions with many women who traveled with me in this journey and hosted me during the past 25 years of association with them, they have inspired me to learn their dialect, record their oratures, and make an attempt to devise alphabets for their orally transmitted sounds. I speak 22 languages, and then when I speak these 22 languages, my mind gets so confused. When somebody says, "Enanga nalla irkingla," then I speak to them, "Okay, hum acha hai, chal. Main bahut acha hu, chal." This is how I overlap my thoughts, and this is the result of, mind becomes a junkie place. Then, one of my very first encounters with the lives of tribal women made me understand their alienation from their own bodies, their own mind, and their own spheres of existence. I quote my poem, The Doorbell. As the cold south wind knocks nature's doorbell, shocked and shriveled, the old leaves fall, one after another, as praise to death. And the grief-struck tree stands revealed. Then, their hollow eyes betray dreams that melt like glistening pearls and slide down their cheeks before they could capture the glimmer hope they so enticingly seems to offer. And then, in my next poem, Melting Moments, I said, but when the winter sun comes shining, my ice flowers begin to melt. But when the winter sun comes shining, my ice flowers begin to melt. I watch them crying at my window pane. I reach out to the droplets, thinking perhaps they bring greetings. Like so many glistening and gleaming whirl pearls, leaving only memories of their presence, the men leave. The deep sense of frustrations stemming from being betrayed by men, the women consider their beloved, reveals their emotional turmoil. I quote my poem, Strange Tangles. I said, "You have done what you wanted. After all, you aced your disappearing act. Promises broken one after another." And finally, the woman, she asks herself, "Who are you to me?" The pangs of unrequited love raging in their hearts leave them deluded and emotionally orphaned. I quote my poem, Deluded Self. "I'm so incomplete without you around. You are oblivious of your pain mounting in my heart. After all, we are just not meant to be, masked in the shade of life's color." Their pristine innocence doesn't help them to understand the brutal fact that they have been deceived. They only blame themselves for their painful, pitiful conditions, cursing their fate for separating them from the world. Tribal women, sometimes when I ask these women, "Why did you allow men to take care of things?" Then she says, "It's not by options that I made. I thought he can take care of me and my world around. And so that I also can look like you." If the native people, they have so much of care, for the modern society. Most of them, they would like to, if some of them would like to look like what we look like, there are the older generations, they always wanted to be. They don't want to come out, and they say, there is a lady called Aniginidi. She's around 88 years old. And she's my first student in the tribal land. And one day I went to her and I said, "What are you writing on the road?" She's just writing something on the sand. Then she said, "You are the one who has written alphabets to my tribals, right?" And then she said, in Telugu, "Ma bhashaki chokkani ichavu," she said. That means you have given shirt to my language. And this is how she is, 88 years old lady. I know sometimes age is not the, though age is not at your side, but age is not the thing to be counted for. 88 years old, she was my first student. And then looking at her, I have written this. She said, "Why do I need to blame somebody when I have chosen to have my life this way? I'm married 18 times," she said. "And how many children you have?" She said, "I have 6. And are the 6 children taking care of you?" And then she said, No, I have taken care of 6 children, but 6 children have not taken care of me. And even they don't remember that they have a mother waiting for them. And then most of them, they say, "You don't come to this plain land, you go back to your place." That is where the title of the book is placed as, "Don't push me, the sky roofs my valley too. I'm also a part of this world." And then she says this, "In yesteryears, you were the shining sun in my life. What fatal wind has cast an evil eye?" She said, "I loved my husband so dearly, but he left me. And I am not to be blamed, or either he is not to be blamed." That is the attitude of this woman. And so, a poet as an author is not a journey to be mentioned in a time of 15 minutes or so. I am easily approachable on my website, professorprasannasree.com. If at all you are interested in reading my poetry, you are welcome for that. And thank you, the organizers, for giving the time. I think I am very early.